This video is over lesson 44, finding slope using the slope formula, and it's for my Algebra 1 class. In a previous lesson, we learned how to find slope, particularly looking at a graph and looking from point to point. However, in this lesson, we're going to focus specifically on using the formula. So in order to use the formula, we got to know the formula. So slope equals m. M is the letter we typically use to describe slope. Slope is rise over run, so how far we're going up and down versus how far we're going left and right. You can also look at this as delta y over delta x, which really just means the change in your y values over the change in your x values. But remember that change is defined as final minus initial. So ultimately, the formula that we're really going to be focusing in on here is this guy right here. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And what this is referring to is to 2 points. One point has an x and a y value. The other has an x and a y value. And what we do is we give one point the subscripts 1 to label it as the first point. So this is my first point. The other one, we give the subscripts 2 to it to label it as the second point. It doesn't really matter which one's the first and which one's the second, because if we reverse these, all you're going to end up doing is taking the opposite of both the numerator and the denominator. And so essentially you're going to have a negative and a negative that are going to cancel each other out. So in the end, it doesn't really matter which one's first, which one's second. For our sake today, just to be consistent, we are going to take this typically as literally just the order they're written in. But technically we could switch it around. The key though, if you're going to switch it around though, is you've got to be consistent. So whatever you choose to be your first point, whatever you choose to be your second point, those have to stay the same. So you can't halfway through change your mind and mix these up so you've got x sub 1, y sub 2, and x sub 2, y sub 1. That's not going to work. So you do need to make sure that all of your sub 2 points or sub 2 coordinates come from the same point. All your sub 1 values or coordinates come from the same point. So let's go ahead and try this out then. Down here, I'm going to use m for slope to label what is it I'm doing. So m is slope, m equals. And m equals y sub 2. So in this case, I'm going to treat this as my first point. This is my second point. So 2 is x sub 1. 5 is y sub 1. Negative 3 is x sub 2. And 8 is y sub 2. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So the second y value, 8, minus the first y value, 5. There's my numerator. Denominator, x sub 2, negative 3, and minus x sub 1, 2. And now we simplify. 8 minus 5 is 3. That's nice and easy. On bottom, negative 3 minus 2 would be a negative 5. And then if we divide that, well, 3 divided by 5 is 3/5, but a positive divided by negative is a negative. So the slope here would be a negative 3/5. Taking what we learned in a previous lesson then, this slope of negative 3/5 should tell you that this is going downhill. If we were to graph these 2 points out as we move from left to right, this would be going downhill. Now, I'm going to work through the rest of these, but what I recommend that you do regularly is pause the video and maybe work out the next problem or the next couple problems, and then hit play and double check how you did. So I'm not going to keep saying that with each problem, but from here on out, I would recommend, like I said, every, maybe for the next 3 or 4 problems, you just pause, you do one problem, and then you hit play just to make sure you're doing it right. But then especially as we get to that second side, if you want to do 2 problems and then hit play, that would make sense. So I'm going to run through these now, try to do them pretty quickly here. So second example, m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So the second y value, 27. Minus the first y value, negative 9. and then that's going to be over the x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So the second x value, 5, minus the first x value, negative 4. And right off the bat, what catches my attention? Minus a negative is plus a positive. Minus a negative is plus positive. Anytime you find that, change it immediately. Now this becomes super easy because 27 plus 9 is 36, and 4 plus 5 is 9. Well, fractions mean division, so 36 divided by 9, this has a slope of 4. And since that's a positive, that means as we're going from left to right, this is going uphill. Next example, m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So second x value is 6, or second y value is 6 minus the first y value is 6 over x sub 2, which is 2, minus x sub 1, which is negative 3. Minus the negative instantly changes to plus a positive. Now up top, 6 minus 6 is 0. On bottom, 2 plus 3 is 5. And 0 over 5, of course, is just 0. Now when you see this, instantly you should be thinking something. That should mean something to you. So remember, negatives mean it's going downhill. Positive means it's going uphill. So 0 is neither positive nor negative. So what does this mean? Well, if we're not going up and we're not going down, this must be horizontal. A slope of 0 means that this is a horizontal line. So if we graph these 2 points, we're going to have a horizontal line. All right, next example. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So second y value is negative 4, minus the first y value is 1, over x sub 2, which is 5, minus x sub 1, which is also 5. Negative 4 minus 1, basically like a negative 4 and a negative 1, makes a negative 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Anything over 0 is undefined. So the slope here is undefined. And once again, well, that's not positive, that's not negative, and that's also not 0. Well, the only way we get this, if we think about our rise over our run, so we've got a rise, but we have no run. So this isn't moving left or right at all. If it's not moving right or left at all, that must be a vertical line. So just a reminder, a slope of 0 means it's horizontal. An undefined slope means that it's a vertical line. So we're not moving left to right. All right, next example. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So the second y value 9 minus the first value y value 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So the second x value 3 minus the first x value 7. That's 8 over a negative 4. 8 over 4 is a 2, but a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so negative 2. So that one's moving downhill. Coming up to the other side then, m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so 4 minus 7, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so 8 minus negative 2, which I'm going to change instantly to plus positive. And so we get a negative 3 over 10, which is a negative 3/10. Next up, m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so 2 minus 2, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so 5 minus 0. Well, that's 0 over 5, which is just 0. So once again, we have a horizontal line. All right, next example. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so 4 minus 3, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, 5 minus 1. That's 1, that's 4, and that's nice and simplified. Next example, m equals y sub 2, 7, minus y sub 1, negative 2, and I'm going to change that right now, just plus positive, all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. negative 5. So plus a positive. And so 7 plus 2 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. And so, well, 9 over 9 is 1. That's a slope of 1. And our last example here, equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So second y value is negative 1. Minus the first y value is a negative 4, which I'm going to change to plus a positive right away. And on the bottom, I've got x sub 2 is negative 3, minus x sub 1 is a negative 3. Change it to plus a positive. So up top, a negative 1 plus a positive 4 is a positive 3. And on bottom, a negative 3 plus a positive 3, well, if you add opposites, the answer is always 0. Anything over to 0, though, is undefined. And so if we have an undefined slope, we automatically know that these 2 points would make a vertical line. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our lesson.